This was a big year for the Tea Party in a lot of scary ways. I think it culminated, the highlight for them, I think, was the Ted Cruz filibuster right before the government shut down. And if you forgot it, well, Dr. Seuss.
The difference with green eggs and ham is when Americans tried it, they discovered they did not like green eggs and ham, and they did not like Obamacare either. They did not like Obamacare in a box with a fox, in a house, or with a mouse. People are frustrated because their elected officials don't listen.
All right, we are subjected to a tremendous amount of idiocy out of Washington, mostly out of Congress. Was that the stupidest moment? I mean, was that just the dumbest? We had the biggest lie before with Clapper, but was that type of thing and what then led to the shutdown, was that our dumbest political moment?
It's bullshit because he's like, the American people tried it and didn't like it. They didn't try Obamacare. It doesn't go into effect until 2014.
Right.
You know,
the website wasn't even not working.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The website had yet to fail and crash.
Right.
And they're already bashing it. So look, the problem with Ted Cruz is that he's actually, I could see why he's appealing, because he says just enough truth, and that's why he's so much more dangerous. Because he does tap into that frustration that people feel with their government. But he's not the guy that's going to bring about the change that they really want, because we all feel that. The fact is, our representatives, they don't represent us. They represent the moneyed interests. So Cruz purports to be the guy who will bypass the moneyed interest and he will support us, like the actual people, but it's just not true. And he at best, he will represent the fringe, the extreme fringe.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that when government works, and when it works well, it does great things for society. And it's like having a freeway system, it's having the parks, it's having an army, it's having
FDA.
It's having the FDA, so you don't die from eating poison. It's having a clean environment. I mean, we need to have cops.
Yes, firemen.
Yeah, regulators.
Yes.
Kind of enforcing the rules so that we're all better off. We can't have anarchy, obviously, and Ted Cruz taps into that because we all get frustrated by the government. Whether it's a parking ticket or you're paying your taxes, we get frustrated, and he taps into that very effectively.
Yeah, well, he does that really well, and there's something interesting about somebody that, in a weird way, the far left and the far right should all be agreeing on certain things about money, basically, but he's tapping into a whole other paranoid delusion thing. Was this a good year or bad year for the Tea Party?
I think it was ultimately a bad year for the Tea Party. I think that, well, it's the interesting thing because Ted Cruz says, not popular, that people don't like Obamacare. People tried it, they don't like it, they rejected it. Well, let me tell you something, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz's approval ratings in America are 14%. Obamacare's approval rating is 46%. Okay, so it's by a factor of, I don't know, 3. It's more popular than you are, Obamacare. And that poll about Obamacare was taken at its lowest point in the rollout. So when the big fiasco was happening, they took that, and people still liked it 46%. Let me tell you something else. When you take individual parts of Obamacare and you ask Republicans how they feel about it, overwhelmingly they like most of Obamacare, except for the individual mandate. But if they were told where that came from, they switch. Yeah. So that's the amazing thing about Ted Cruz, and Steve is right. He's appealing because he taps into our frustration with government, but then he doesn't give you a real solution. What he does is fuck you, nothing. He just goes, Obamacare is fucked up, so I'm going to give you nothing to replace it. I got the best healthcare plan in the world. I got mine. Screw you. That's Ted Cruz.
Well, to literally give an example of what you're saying, the government shutdown cost how much? $24 billion, I think, and it did not accomplish anything.
A thing.
Not a thing. Should we on the left have a Tea Party? Do you think that the Democrats actually need a Tea Party to push or to pull more left?
Well, I liked Howard Dean when he was running for president in 2008, and he kept saying, I'm from the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party. And of course, they had to shut him down right away because he was speaking what people really wanted to hear. So I think definitely we need more Howard Deans. But then Howard Dean then got co-opted, because his party won. So now he's a good Democrat. So, he shuts the fuck up.
They made him the head of the DNC.
They make him the head. Sure, they give him this big prize at the end. So, they give him the head. 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 They give him the head
What do you think? Do the progressives need a political movement like they have the Tea Party?
Yes, absolutely. And I think most Americans would be on their side.
Yes.
I mean, if you poll Americans on any issue, they poll way, way progressive in overwhelming majorities. It's just that we don't have representatives who actually represent those interests because they represent the interests of the moneyed interests.
Right.
So yes, if we had people like, you know, there are a few, like Alan Grayson's a good guy, Bernie Sanders. There are a few who are terrific, and their problem is that they just don't get the fair treatment from the media. The media treats them like they're crazy people. Oh, the extreme left. Oh, they want things like, you know, clean air and water and standards so that oil companies just can't rape our natural resources. They're crazy like that.
They don't want to cut Social Security and Medicare, Steve. They don't want to cut Social Security and Medicare, the two things that don't add to our deficit that aren't a problem.
Yeah.
So do they need like a celebrity then, basically? Because there are people. I mean, Bernie Sanders is obviously too old to really become. You know, he doesn't want anything bigger than what he's got. Or somebody like Grayson is just sort of back in it again. But is there some? Is it going to be Matt Damon or somebody? Would it take somebody like that to really build a party?
It would be nice to see a progressive caucus actually speak with a unified voice. And, you know, there are enough, there's Ron Wyden, there's Senator Brown, there's Bernie Sanders. And yeah, it's if they would just come together and all keep constantly, you know, that's the beauty of the right wing is that, you know, George Bush even, he said it out loud. He said, you know, governing is all just about launching propaganda. You just have to keep launching it until it sets in. And that's what the Democrats don't do. They don't have a message. They don't have a central message. And I think the progressives need to pick up the ball and have a message. And, you know, you talk about the Tea Party. I think we're the Tea Party of the Democrats, you know, the Wolf Pack and the Young Turks and people like us are, but we need to somehow influence real leadership, you know. I mean, we need to get them to be more responsive to us because the government isn't responsive. I mean, if you look at the perfect example of that from this last year, as we're talking about year end, is that the gun bill, which had 90% support in the public, of course it didn't pass because what Steve says, the moneyed interests didn't want it to pass.
Yeah. Look, I don't know if I have time, but
just
real quick thing. I mean, you know, look at our taxes. I mean, taxing is one of the biggest part of what government does. The Progressive Caucus proposed a progressive budget, and what they would do is they would tax us at graduated rates, going all the way up from nothing to, you know, I think $1 billion. So right now the tax rates don't make any sense because, for example, if you make above $250,000, you pay the same rate as a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
Okay. Obviously, from $50,000 to $250,000, that's a big gap. But from $250,000 to 20 million to $5 billion is a much bigger gap. It should be graduated. So let's say the top marginal rate is 33%, whatever it may be. If you make above $1 million, it should be maybe 36%. Above $10 million, maybe 38%. Above $1 billion, maybe 42%.
Maybe even 42%.
Yeah. And if we did that, you know what would happen? It would wipe out the deficit. We could fund education. We could fund, you know, alternative energy. We could do so much. And why would the conservatives and the Tea Party not be in favor of this? Because it's the most fair way of doing things.
Stealing money from the producers, the people who are the job creators. You're stealing money from them to give to people who are lazy. That's what they would say. And I'll tell you this about tax. You say let's raise the income tax so billionaires, but billionaires don't pay income tax. Mitt Romney proved that. So what they do is they pay a 15% investment tax, right? So they pay capital gains taxes. So we need to get capital gains back up to where. But the idea behind capital gains is if we lower the amount of money we tax when someone invests in a business, then people will invest more. The problem is people are still going to invest no matter how much you tax them because people want to make fucking money. You're going to make 70% return or a 60% return. I'll take both, whichever one I can get. I'll take 50% return. I'll take a 20%. If I can invest money and make money back, that's what we're talking about. Savings accounts, let's remember, pay nothing anymore. So nobody talks about that. Not being an incentive to save.
No, I'm with you.
So I'll only save if I get 75%.
Yes, right. 60% I'm not going to save. But doesn't this go to the messaging problem? Because The 1%, we all talk about the 1%, and it's a great number. It's like if you like your plan, you can keep it. It's just a simple thing. But really, the 1%, we did a thing on it a couple of weeks ago. It's something like $250,000. You're the 1%. But you can have $250,000 and really not be rolling in a ton, you know, and living a nice, decent, middle, upper class life. But so it's not about that. We should have a progressive tax that really, when you're talking about millions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars, and then ultimately the billions of dollars, so that the Walmart family doesn't own as much as the bottom 40%.
Well, the estate tax used to take care of all that at the end. So then when you died, okay, you got to have all your money for your whole life. And then when you died, we took half your money. And then, because, you know, you got to benefit from living in this country and this society that we built. Now you have to pay for it after you're dead. But then they stopped doing that because they had
it's around $5 million now or something.
They had a vote to see who had to pay taxes: dead people, dead millionaires, or living people. And guess who won? Fucking dead millionaires. That's how powerful money is.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, it's true, and it's ridiculous because it's not really the top 1%. That's the problem. It's the top 0.1%.
Yes.
Because if you're the top 1%, your interests are pretty much aligned with most people in the 98%. Because my analogy is this: if you're making $250,000 a year, you know what that means? That means you can afford to eat the nice steak. If you're making $50,000 a year, you get to eat a burger. Okay. If you're making less, you have to maybe get a hot dog or whatever it may be. But if you're making $20 million a year, you own the whole restaurant and the entire city block. Okay. So it's a game changer. It's a totally different level when you're making millions and millions of dollars. I mean, this 250s. I mean, it's a Hunger Games. It's like the uber rich making the people who make $250,000 fight with the people who make $50,000. Okay, that's a silly fight.
Right, it's the wrong fight. But on that note, hot dogs on me after the show.
Can I give you a final thought on this? And before 1980, the upper 5% had accumulated $40 trillion, which is a lot of money. $40 trillion. Since then, the upper 5% have accumulated more money than the entire human race had produced prior to 1980. Think about that stat. That's a big stat, and that comes from David Stockman, Ronald Reagan's budget director.
Right. So a segment on Tea Party. Basically, we ended with progressive tax. Look it up.